But would it be fair to say that one of the real drivers of this apparent devaluation of the dollar since 71 has been the increase in the price of oil, because so much of our economy is based on that? Isn't that what drove the inflation of the 1970s, in particular the Carter years?
Yeah, sure. That's what drove the high inflationary periods of the early 1970s, were a couple of oil price shocks. Absolutely. But then oil came down. Do you remember it wasn't that long ago when oil was around $40 a barrel. And
Right.
So, yeah, these things happen, but then, you gain back that ground over time. So it hasn't left us permanently damaged, in other words.
Right. So our dollar is basically what it. Okay. So where do we go with this? Understanding that we're using a fiat currency instead of a gold standard currency, how should that inform differences in policy perspective?
Okay, so this is the really big question, because so much of the national dialogue today is about how to begin to balance the budget, how to begin to get the so-called deficits and debt under control. We are gripped by hysteria in this country, and most of the population apparently believes that we have a fiscal crisis in this country, that we're hurtling towards Greece, that we're going to end up burdening our grandchildren with lots and lots of debt, that China is our banker, and that if we don't appease the markets, the bond vigilantes were coming. I mean, any number of fearful stories are told about the U.S. government's financial state. And so what we like to do is say, well, hold on a second. If the currency is a floating exchange rate, fiat currency, and the U.S. government is the issuer of that currency. Okay, the U.S. dollar comes from the U.S. government. It can't come from anywhere else. It doesn't come from China. We aren't at the mercy of the Chinese. We don't have to worry about the bond vigilantes coming after us and refusing to lend the currency, because the United States government is the issuer of the currency. It can never run out. And so what we've done is construct all of these false barriers that prevent us from moving. They paralyze us in terms of our economic policy response to the worst economic recession since the Great Depression, still very high levels of unemployment, lots and lots of useful things for people to do, lots of people who want to contribute, and we can't figure out how to repair this economy because we think that we've run out of money. We have a president who tells us that we are broke, that the U.S. has run out of money. And so what we have to do, it's just so important that we reach the point in this country where we recognize that it isn't about affordability, that these stories that we've been told are simply not true, that the U.S. government can afford to buy anything that's for sale in U.S. dollars. It's not about whether you can afford to make the payments. It's about whether you have the resources in order to mobilize the resources, the humans, the steel, the concrete, the copper. If you want to rebuild the nation's infrastructure, you need resources to do that. And that means real resources in the economy. And if those are available, then money really is no object.
Okay. We'll be right back with more of Dr. Stephanie Kelton right after this.